Ground rods are required at both the meter location and at each dwelling unit's main panel location. This is because the service lateral from the transformer is not protected by overcurrent devices at the meter bank. Therefore, a fault on the service lateral could backfeed power into the building, and the ground rods at each dwelling unit's main panel would provide a path to ground for the fault current. Therefore, there should be 8 ground rods in total, 2 at each of the 4 dwelling units' main panel locations, and 2 at the meter location. The ground rods at each location should be bonded together at the same location as the water pipe. The installation described in the question does not comply with the National Electrical Code, also known as the NEC, for the following reasons. Firstly, there are no service disconnects or overcurrent devices at the meter bank, and secondly, there are multiple services, 4 to be exact, in a single building. According to the NEC, a service is defined as a conductor or group of conductors that connects the service equipment of a building or other structure to the electric supply system of the premises. Service equipment includes the necessary overcurrent devices, fuses, or circuit breakers, and grounding facilities. In this case, there are no overcurrent devices or grounding facilities at the meter bank. Therefore, the meter bank does not constitute service equipment. Instead, the service equipment is located at each dwelling unit's main panel. This means that there are 4 services in the building, which is not allowed by the NEC. To comply with the NEC, the installation should be modified as follows. Firstly, install a single service disconnect and overcurrent devices at the meter bank. Secondly, install a single service lateral from the transformer to the meter bank. Thirdly, run 4 separate service laterals from the meter bank to each dwelling unit's main panel. And fourthly, bond the service equipment at each dwelling unit's main panel to the dwelling unit's water main. Let's break down the requirements for ground rods and service configurations in multi-family dwellings based on the National Electrical Code. The key to understanding the grounding requirements lies in the protection, or lack thereof, on the service lateral from the transformer. Since there are no overcurrent protection devices at the meter bank, a fault on the service lateral could send power back into the building. This is where the ground rods at each dwelling unit's main panel become crucial. They provide a path to ground for the fault current, helping to protect the electrical system and, more importantly, the people using it. This means a total of 8 ground rods, 2 at each of the 4 dwelling units' main panel locations, and 2 at the meter location. These ground rods need to be properly bonded together at the same location as the water pipe. This ensures a common ground potential throughout the system. Now let's address the service configuration. The described installation with 4 separate services in a single building doesn't align with the NEC. The code defines a service as the conductors connecting the building's service equipment to the utility supply system. Service equipment includes overcurrent devices, like circuit breakers or fuses, and grounding facilities. In this specific situation, the absence of overcurrent devices and grounding at the meter bank means it doesn't qualify as service equipment. Instead, the service equipment is located at each dwelling unit's main panel, effectively creating 4 individual services. This is generally not permitted by the NEC, which typically favors a single service for a building, especially in multi-family dwellings. To bring the installation into compliance with the NEC, several modifications are necessary. Firstly, a single service disconnect and overcurrent devices must be installed at the meter bank. This acts as the main point of control and protection for the entire building's electrical system. Secondly, a single service lateral should run from the transformer to this newly established meter bank. Thirdly, from the meter bank, 4 separate service laterals can then extend to each dwelling unit's main panel. And finally, the service equipment at each dwelling unit's main panel must be bonded to the dwelling unit's water main. This ensures proper grounding within each unit. To delve deeper into ground rod requirements, it's essential to understand their role in the electrical system. Ground rods provide a low impedance path to earth, which helps to stabilize voltage and provide a safe path for fault current. When a fault occurs, such as a short circuit, the ground rod helps to quickly trip the overcurrent device, like a circuit breaker, preventing further damage or potential electrical shock. The NEC specifies requirements for the size, type, and installation of ground rods to ensure they are effective. Typically, ground rods are made of copper-clad steel and must be at least 8 feet long. They should be driven into the ground until at least 8 feet of the rod is in contact with the earth. The spacing between ground rods is also important. If multiple ground rods are used, they should be spaced at least 6 feet apart. This helps to ensure that each rod is effective and that the grounding system as a whole provides a low impedance path to earth. The bonding of ground rods to the water pipe is another crucial aspect of the grounding system. The water pipe acts as a supplementary grounding electrode and helps to further reduce the impedance to earth. The bonding connection must be made within 5 feet of where the water pipe enters the building. This connection must be made with a listed grounding clamp or fitting. In addition to the water pipe, other metal building components, such as metal frames and metal siding, may also need to be bonded to the grounding system. This helps to ensure that all metal parts of the building are at the same potential, reducing the risk of electrical shock. Now let's explore the requirements for service disconnects and overcurrent devices at the meter bank. As mentioned earlier, the NEC requires a single service disconnect and overcurrent devices at the meter bank to serve as the main point of control and protection for the building's electrical system. The service disconnect is a switch or circuit breaker that allows the entire electrical service to be disconnected from the building. This is important for safety during maintenance or emergencies. The overcurrent devices, such as circuit breakers or fuses, protect the electrical system from overloads and short circuits. These devices are sized to protect the conductors and equipment in the system. The NEC specifies the types of overcurrent devices that are permitted for use as service disconnects. Typically, circuit breakers or fuse switches are used. The size of the overcurrent devices must be coordinated with the size of the conductors and equipment in the system. This ensures that the overcurrent devices will trip before the conductors or equipment are damaged. The location of the service disconnect and overcurrent devices is also important. They must be readily accessible and located near the point where the service conductors enter the building. This allows for easy access during maintenance or emergencies. The service disconnect and overcurrent devices must also be properly labeled to indicate their function. This helps to prevent confusion and ensures that the correct devices are used during maintenance or emergencies. When running separate service laterals from the meter bank to each dwelling unit's main panel, it's crucial to follow NEC guidelines for conductor sizing and protection. Each lateral must be sized to carry the calculated load for the individual dwelling unit it serves. This calculation considers the square footage of the unit, the appliances used, and other factors that contribute to the electrical demand. The conductors must also be protected by overcurrent devices at both the meter bank and the dwelling unit's main panel. These overcurrent devices must be sized to protect the conductors from overload and short circuit. The NEC provides tables and guidelines for determining the appropriate conductor size and overcurrent protection for various applications. It's essential to consult these resources to ensure that the installation complies with the code. In addition to conductor sizing and protection, it's also important to consider the routing and installation of the service laterals. The conductors must be installed in a raceway, such as conduit or electrical metallic tubing, to protect them from physical damage. The raceway must be properly supported and secured to prevent it from sagging or becoming damaged. The conductors must also be properly identified and labeled to indicate their function. This helps to prevent confusion and ensures that the correct conductors are used during maintenance or emergencies. Finally, let's discuss the bonding requirements at each dwelling unit's main panel. As mentioned earlier, the service equipment at each dwelling unit's main panel must be bonded to the dwelling unit's water main. This ensures proper grounding within each unit. The bonding connection must be made within 5 feet of where the water pipe enters the building. This connection must be made with a listed grounding clamp or fitting. In addition to the water pipe, other metal building components such as metal frames and metal siding may also need to be bonded to the grounding system. This helps to ensure that all metal parts of the building are at the same potential, reducing the risk of electrical shock. The NEC provides detailed requirements for bonding and grounding in residential and commercial buildings. It's essential to consult these resources to ensure that the installation complies with the code. By following these guidelines, you can ensure that the electrical system in a multi-family dwelling is safe, reliable, and compliant with the NEC. Remember that electrical work can be dangerous, and it's always best to consult with a qualified electrician if you have any questions or concerns. They can help you to design and install an electrical system that meets your needs and complies with all applicable codes and regulations. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, is a comprehensive set of standards that governs the safe installation of electrical wiring and equipment. It is updated every 3 years to reflect changes in technology and best practices. Compliance with the NEC is essential to ensure the safety of people and property. The NEC covers a wide range of topics, including grounding, bonding, overcurrent protection, wiring methods, and equipment installation. It also includes specific requirements for different types of occupancies, such as residential, commercial, and industrial buildings. The NEC is not a law itself, but it is often adopted by state and local governments as part of their built-in codes. This means that compliance with the NEC is legally required in many jurisdictions. The NEC is developed by the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, a non-profit organization that develops and publishes codes and standards for fire prevention and safety. The NFPA brings together experts from various fields, including electrical engineers, contractors, inspectors, and manufacturers, to develop the NEC. The NEC is a consensus-based standard, which means that it reflects the collective knowledge and experience of a wide range of stakeholders. This helps to ensure that the NEC is both technically sound and practical to implement. The NEC is organized into chapters, articles, and sections. Each chapter covers a specific area of electrical work, such as grounding and bonding or wiring methods. Each article provides more detailed requirements for a specific topic within the chapter. Each section provides specific instructions for how to comply with the requirements in the article. The NEC also includes tables and figures that provide additional information and guidance. These tables and figures are often used to determine conductor sizes, overcurrent protection, and other electrical parameters. The NEC is a complex and comprehensive document, but it is essential for anyone involved in electrical work to be familiar with its requirements. By following the NEC, you can help to ensure the safety of people and property and avoid costly mistakes. Grounding and bonding are two of the most important concepts in the NEC. Grounding is the process of connecting electrical equipment to the earth. This provides a low impedance path for fault current to flow back to the source, which helps to trip the overcurrent device and prevent electrical shock. Bonding is the process of connecting metal parts of the electrical system together. This helps to ensure that all metal parts are at the same potential, reducing the risk of electrical shock. The NEC provides detailed requirements for grounding and bonding in residential and commercial buildings. These requirements cover the size and type of grounding and bonding conductors, the methods of connecting grounding and bonding conductors, and the location of grounding and bonding connections. Overcurrent protection is another essential concept in the NEC. Overcurrent protection is the process of protecting electrical equipment from overloads and short circuits. Overloads occur when the current in a circuit exceeds the rated capacity of the equipment. Short circuits occur when there is a direct connection between two conductors, such as a hot wire and a neutral wire. The NEC requires that all electrical circuits be protected by overcurrent devices, such as circuit breakers or fuses. These devices are designed to trip when the current exceeds a certain level, which helps to prevent damage to the equipment and reduce the risk of fire. The NEC provides detailed requirements for the size and type of overcurrent devices that are required for different types of circuits. These requirements are based on the size of the conductors, the type of equipment being protected, and the operating voltage of the circuit. Wiring methods are the different ways that electrical conductors can be installed. The NEC recognizes a variety of wiring methods, including conduit, cable, and wireway. Each wiring method has its own advantages and disadvantages, and the NEC specifies the conditions under which each wiring method can be used. Conduit is a rigid or flexible tube that is used to protect electrical conductors. Conduit is typically made of metal or plastic and is available in a variety of sizes. Conduit is often used in commercial and industrial buildings because it provides excellent protection for the conductors. Cable is a group of electrical conductors that are bundled together in a protective sheath. Cable is typically used in residential buildings because it is easy to install and relatively inexpensive. Wireway is a metal trough or channel that is used to support and protect electrical conductors. Wireway is often used in commercial and industrial buildings because it provides easy access to the conductors for maintenance and repairs. Equipment installation is another important aspect of the NEC. The NEC provides detailed requirements for the installation of electrical equipment such as lighting fixtures, receptacles, and appliances. These requirements cover the location of the equipment, the wiring connections, and the grounding and bonding requirements. The NEC also includes specific requirements for different types of equipment, such as swimming pools, spas, and electric signs. By following the NEC, you can help to ensure that electrical equipment is installed safely and correctly. In summary, understanding the NEC is crucial for ensuring electrical safety in multi-family dwellings. Properly implementing grounding, bonding, overcurrent protection, and correct wiring methods are essential for protecting residents and property. Consulting with a qualified electrician ensures compliance and safe electrical system design and installation.